Hello, and welcome back to the show. I'm so glad you're tuning in with us today. On this platform, we're dedicated to shifting perspectives and broadening horizons through the pillars of access, inclusion, and representation. Today, we're discussing the world of inclusive travel with our guest and regular co host, Sylvia Stinson Perez. Imagine for a moment embarking on a grueling, multi week, hundreds of miles pilgrimage across international borders. Now imagine navigating that terrain with sight loss. I love what Marcel Proust, French novelist, critic, and essayist, has to say about journeying. The real voyage of discovery consists not of seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. Sylvia recently laced up her shoes in Portugal and embarked on the historic Camino de Santiago journey, crossing over into Spain. From navigating rugged coastal paths to exploring how international infrastructure rises to meet disabled travelers, Sylvia's journey is nothing short of incredible. Today, co hosts Nazreen and Gabby are sitting down with her to explore what it truly means to navigate the world boldly. So let's begin. Sylvia, welcome, welcome. So, how does it feel to be in the interviewer's seat?
Thanks, Steph. Well, I'm an adventurer, so I think it'll just be fun to talk with all of you about what that true adventure looked like for me.
Cool. And conversation, we want to hear all about your travels. So now I'm going to turn the mic over to Nazreen and Gabby. Ladies.
Hi, Sylvia. Steph is right. We are absolutely dying to hear about your wonderful trip and, the reality of that amazing trail, actually. So, Sylvia, you began your communal journey in Porto, Portugal. And for anyone unfamiliar, the communal involves miles of unpredictable terrain. What steps did you have to take to mentally prepare and logistically prepare for a trek of this scale? Because you're a traveler with sight loss, right? And that can be daunting, and I would bet many people would not even want to try.
Well, I love the word unpredictable because that is probably the best word to describe it. And about 500,000 people each year from across the world complete the Camino de Santiago. And there are many paths. And so we chose the one that we ended up walking about 200 miles in 2 weeks. And my feet are still suffering from it. So it wasn't like an overnight decision. We were following people online who were doing it. And I really want to do that. That sounds like a real test of resilience and getting out of my comfort zone. So there was a training period. It was kind of a dream that really required lots of preparation. Just gradually increasing my walking distance. And I think a few of you know that I had an actual injury 3 months before I was
Hmm.
supposed to go. So I had to literally take 2 months off. Then I was down to like just over a month to continue training. And one of the things mentally that I faced, and probably I realized this about 3 or 4 days into our more about 15-day walk on the Camino. So y'all are probably familiar with this, is that we like to control things. When you can't see, you're always thinking ahead, like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and this is how I'm going to manage that.
Yeah, yeah.
So my husband, he was like our logistics guy and the encourager and all this. And so I would be asking him, okay, now did you book the room? And what if the room's not good? And blah, 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 blah. Just all these questions. And like 3 days in, I was like, okay, all I'm thinking about is the future things. And I need to really focus on what's going on. And when I let the future go and stopped worrying about where I was going to sleep, what I was going to eat, all those things. I really was able to be present. We always talk about this whole concept of being present in life. And I think this was possibly one of the few times in my life where I've really been present for an extended amount of time. My brain quieted, and I'm really now trying to continue that with myself. But we did research. We figured out how far we thought we could walk. And so we literally booked our accommodations the previous night and sometimes the morning of, based on how we felt. So deciding what equipment to carry, that was a big thing. And I'm going to show y'all. This was my backpack. Yes, it's purple. Ooh. For 3 weeks, had one packing cube of clothes.
Wow.
That was really, really hard. And then even the cane, people were asking, what kind of cane are you going to take? So I am a big fan of this telescoping cane, and I blinged it up a little bit with purple. Just a little strip of purple, just to kind of give that little bling for me. And I carried 2 canes, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. So another thing is, everyone might notice today I have on a headscarf. And this is one of the headscarves I wore. And people were like, oh, you need a hat. You got to protect yourself from the sun. I did get a tan. I think it's gone by now, though. But I don't really love hats. That's going to take up more room. It's going to be less things I can bring. So I came up with this whole headscarf thing, and that has now become my signature. And what I loved about the headscarf is when you can only take a cube of clothes, I literally had 2 pairs of leggings, a pair of shorts, and 4 nice color shirts, but nothing that made me feel beautiful. So the headscarf kind of gave me that hey, this is just a little piece of beauty on my journey. So it just became something fun.
Wow, that's a lot there that you shared with us about the trip and all the different facets, from mentally preparing to the logistics of it. So those are some really great tips for our listeners.
We also had to figure out how to communicate. So I originally thought, I'm going to use my cane most of the time. And we'll get into the terrain in a bit, but I realized that's not possible for most of it. And so we had created this cool tether system where I could be anywhere from holding onto his backpack to 4 foot away. And so that became a really great thing for just allowing me to have that interdependence.
Absolutely. Interdependence is very key, especially when we're traveling and we want to do for ourselves. So that's really, really great. And I'm sure if in a hot place like that, you don't want to be all snuggled up anyways, right?
Actually, the temperatures varied from cool to hot. I wouldn't go in the summer because it's boiling out there.
Oh, so you were saying that when you went, the temperature wasn't as hot as it should be. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Which brings me to my next point. So on day 2, you had shared an update about facing the real conditions of the trail. Can you please paint a picture for our listeners on what those physical conditions were like and how you adapted to them day by day? Because I'm sure that changed on the fly.
Yeah. So we started off on wonderful boardwalks along the coast and listening to the ocean. That was just amazing.
Beautiful.
But then we encountered things like cobblestone streets, which you absolutely cannot use a cane on.
No.
Loose gravel, rocky paths, dirt trails.
Wow.
And on some of the dirt trails, by the way, there were moments where I used my skills, okay, but I dropped the tether and just walked. And that was so freeing to be able to just walk. But I had to use what was under my feet and listen carefully. I knew that my husband was there to tell me if there was going to be anything big, but there were 10 to 15 minute times when I could just walk and listen and pay attention. But there was also big inclines and declines.
Wow.
we crossed mountains. and there were crowded city streets. We walked along traffic. Sometimes we were in what I would call unsafe situations. And there was lots of fatigue. And I had a lot of feet issues. I had 8 blisters. I visited the podiatrist twice during my journey, one about 4 days in and one on the last day. I lost a couple toenails. I have since lost toenails. Um, it was every day in some way kind of painful, and it was still magical. I just needed to navigate the obstacles that were in front of me right then. You don't really conquer the Camino all at once. You conquer one step at a time, one challenge, one hill at a time. And isn't that like essentially how life is?
That brings me to my next point about the senses of the Camino. You mentioned that you walked over 14 miles in a single day, and then you kind of found some immense joy in listening to the bird sounds and the unique scents in the air. When sight is limited, how did your other senses kick in and take shape and help you to connect with the landscape of Portugal and Spain?
Well, as someone who's blind and has been for a long, long time and has traveled a fair amount, I think I have always been focused on what can I get out of this experience that is not visual? Because even going far back, I've gotten very little visually out of an experience. So it is about all the other senses. I'm a pretty avid bird listener. So all the different birds and comparing the birds to what I hear at home and in other places was fun. I used the Merlin Bird ID app. Listen, water all along the way. Like we started with the ocean waves, but through the mountainous areas, there were constant streams running and those little babbling brooks. And that was just wonderful. And then one day we went way out of our way and did a more than 17-mile hike just to visit a waterfall. And I literally laid down by that waterfall because I was completely wiped out and just laid down by that waterfall and listened to it. And just, it was so magical. There was also the sound of rain. And so just the sound of water is so soothing. Everywhere in Europe, this is just a common thing. You hear church bells, and I love to hear the bells ringing. One of my favorite things was the languages from across the world. I mean, people from across the world walk the Camino, and you were constantly hearing languages from everywhere in the world. So there's a greeting along the Camino. In Portugal, it's Bon Camino, which is good Camino, good journey. And in Spain, people switch over to Buen Camino. So you get that, no matter where someone is from, you're constantly hearing that from people. And you can hear the smiles in people's voices, even though they're tired and they're really having to find their resilience and persistence. You can just hear the smile in their voice. There were also great smells, eucalyptus and pine trees. And of course, the smells of lots of animals, which may or may not have smelled good. You will love, there were lots of coffee shops.
Down to the interpersonal connection, Sylvia. The Camino is famous for its community. How did fellow pilgrims on the trail with you interact with you? And what do those spontaneous moments of connection teach you about human nature and shared journeys?
Well, we did not encounter anyone else who was blind on the Camino. I do know there are people who have. We did encounter, we didn't meet them, but we heard about a gentleman who was in a wheelchair and blind, and there was a large group who were escorting him across the Camino, which was just amazing to hear about. But we didn't encounter tons of people who were asking questions about blindness. I think people were super inclusive and kind. I did meet one day this couple girls who were in high school, and they were doing the Camino as their high school project, and they were supposed to interview people. So they interviewed me because they're like, oh my gosh, tell us about all your sensory experiences. And then some of the other experiences I had, I loved one day, and y'all will get this, like the whole bathroom thing, like, how do I, where's the bathroom? I'm traveling with my husband who can't like walk into the bathroom with me.
Mhm.
So several times I would be in the line waiting, and either someone who spoke my language or a language I could understand would assist me,
Mhm.
and one person even provided like sighted guide and told me,
Wow.
okay, when you go in, this is going to be here, this is going to be there, which was really helpful because things weren't where I thought they should be. And another just funny story is one day we were walking with a group, and they were from Scotland and New Zealand. And that's what happens along the way. You end up kind of walking with a small group. Sometimes you're just walking yourselves, and sometimes you end up walking with a group. And so this one day we were walking with this group, and the wife asked me a question, and all of a sudden her husband goes, "You couldn't see? I thought your husband was just tugging you up this mountain." And I turned to him and I said, "Shh, don't talk," because that's what was happening. He was tugging me
Don't
up
tell
that
anybody.
mountain. Don't tell him.
Yeah.
But yes, people were super like kind and welcoming, and I never felt like people thought I didn't belong. So
Wow.
That's amazing. And that's actually encouraging for our listeners to know that if they're ever to take on a journey like this, that they'll feel safe and included and feel that they're well represented within this space as well. I mean, generally Europeans are pretty friendly and nice, and they accept people with disabilities.
what I found is that everyone was really focused on their pilgrimage, and talking to people too, but their pilgrimage and how hard that just putting one step in front of the other was. It's hard. I want people to know it is hard. It's not like you're going to just take a walk. It's hard. But I think one thing I also realized is that every single person on there was carrying their own baggage. We're all carrying these backpacks. Some people were carrying a day pack, some people were carrying big pack, but we're all carrying something in life. And I think that's a place where we realize we all have the same goal, the same mission. We're all carrying stuff, and to just honor that with each other. That's what I felt.
Absolutely. That's beautiful and so encouraging. I want to kind of just flip back a little bit to the word pilgrimage that you just used. I just want to ask you, as for part of my closing question, is what did this pilgrimage mean to you?
It really helped me see that we're all just walking the paths of our life, and that we're all just doing the best we can to put one foot in front of the other. We all kind of have that same mission in life, to find peace, to find joy. And I think there's something special about that. And I'm really trying to maintain that peace and that joy and that presence within myself, which is hard when you get back and life throws all the stuff at you.
Yeah. So it sounds like you came back very relaxed and sort of very surreal and sort of Zen-like and just sort of more focused, and you're letting yourself kind of stay within that scope, and hopefully you can. So I'm going to shift gears over here and move over to Gabby, who's going to look at the global inclusion and infrastructure. So Gabby, over to you.
So Sylvia, as you crossed from Portugal into Spain, did you notice a shift in terms of physical accessibility, trail markings, or how local communities accommodated disabled travelers?
Well, I guess not, since I can't really see anything, not particularly, but there are signposts along the way that have these shells or arrows. And I have a little shell here. Everybody carries this little scallop shell. This is the one I carry, that marks you as like that pilgrim. I think access is not just those things that we think about, practical things like curb cuts, etc., which in some places were more prevalent than others, but we were also walking through a lot of tiny, very historic villages where sketch, a little challenging. Um, Challenging. I'm just going to go use the word challenging. The bigger, more developed kind of areas were less challenging. You would have better, smoother pathways, all that. But I think what I did find, and kind of alluded to earlier, is that there was always this willingness to assist when needed. Nobody really were like, oh my gosh, you're blind. What do we do with that? I mean, and I have encountered that in the world, but I did not encounter that anywhere on the Camino. And I think it might be because, people are coming from across the world. There's every age group you can imagine walking. There are lots of older people walking. One day I will just admit that this 90-year-old man who seemed 90 years old just blew past us on a mountain. Just, yeah. That was motivating to keep going. So you have all these different people from all walks of life, of all ages. Right. And so I think that it's really just a reflection of society that, hey, we have to accommodate to everybody. And I think that happens there.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, the greatest accessibility feature that we encountered was people. It was just the people.
I love that. You said how people came together, and that I think that just adds to that idea of one, I know people in Europe are really friendly, but not just them, people coming together and doing a shared activity. I think that's even, more beautiful. While in Spain, you had the opportunity to visit ONCE, the internationally renowned organization providing services for the blind. What was your biggest takeaway from seeing the advanced technology and strategies they used to support independent living and working?
Well, one of my goals while there was definitely to visit ONCE. I've been doing some work in Honduras and trying to even connect them to ONCE, because ONCE is considered one of the world's leading organizations for helping people who are blind really live independently and work, etc. And so I had emailed them and, a couple of their different offices and said, hey, I want to visit. And this one guy, Jose, he emailed back and said, let me know when you're a day or two away and we'll meet up. And so he gave me the tour of their facility in Pontevedra, and which is not their largest one, but it was giant in this beautiful old historic building. I think he told me it was 48,000 square feet, but it has a residential component, which they use in the summer. But what I will tell you is that it was just state of the art. And my favorite part was the orientation and mobility room. And they're literally working with babies on up on how to do echolocation and how to really understand the sounds in your environment and use that to navigate your world. And then they have this whole texture thing on the floor where it had all the different textures that your feet might encounter, and they're teaching people of all ages, how do I navigate this? How do I work with this? How do I learn from this? And it was just amazing. And then, they work within the school systems as well. And they had a Braille embosser that could emboss over 150 pages of Braille in a couple minutes. I mean, it was magnificent. They had a goalball team, and they have actually taken people on pilgrimages on the Camino, tour groups of people who are blind. But they were really, really focused on people living full, integrated lives, and just having extraordinary skills as people who are blind. I was just so impressed with them. And honestly, I left going, can I come back and volunteer? Essentially, it's like, well, when you learn some better Spanish, that will help.
I love that. This is really inspiring. I agree with Nazreen. This definitely makes me want to someday do this walk and check these places out. So that leads me to my next question, which is seeing Once's impressive operations firsthand, what practices or technologies do you think organizations and cities in the US should adopt to improve true inclusion for the blind community?
Well, what seemed to me obvious is that, especially in Spain, that people were comfortable with people who are blind. And so I know that Once is very well known throughout Spain. And I think that people who are blind are respected there. And so there's clearly been this great public awareness piece that has happened there. And I think that has really empowered people who are blind. There's also seemingly a big focus on ensuring that people who are blind are actually working within the blindness sector, like, in executive director, CEO roles. And I've always believed that that's a really key thing, is making sure that people who are blind have the opportunity when they have the skills and the experience, then making sure they have those opportunities. And I saw that there. The technology really focused on ensuring people have the skills. And it's not enough to just introduce people to a skill. It's just really making sure people develop those skills, not putting a piece of technology in their hand and go, good luck, or putting a cane in their hand and going, good luck. Really creating those opportunities where people can really maximize those skills. And a big part of that is getting out of your comfort zone. I mean, I have always been visually impaired. And I didn't use a white cane until I was like 30. And before that, I realized I was using all of those skills. I was using listening. I was using what was under my feet to navigate. But promoting that more and promoting a sincere understanding of that, and really helping people get out of their comfort zones. And because it is scary, like it was scary for me. And I do lots of things that are kind of scary, but I figure, well, if I mess up, I mess up and I learned something. So yes, those are, I think, the key things that, and then the integration of organizations. I mean, Once partners with a lot of organizations, and I think the willingness to partner and promote what other organizations are doing that lead to that an improved lifestyle for people is just an amazing thing.
That's incredible, because, getting out of your comfort zone and, just kind of like letting people see the potential and understanding their potential that they can bring to a space in the world, right? That's really beautiful. And I love that.
One thing that I will just add, which might be slightly controversial, but I sort of alluded that they're preparing people who are blind better. Like, people have better skills for the most part. And I'm not saying that here or in other places people don't have skills, but that would be the truth. When you when you're not started from early on in life about really learning that you can do things, that you have potential, that you can walk, that you can cross streets, that you can walk a Camino, that you can zip line, whatever it is. If you don't ever hear those things and then push yourself or have people who will push you to do all those things, it can be very limiting for you. And then if you're not out there doing things, you're not developing skills. And I say that to myself as well. I mean, I can be just as afraid as anyone else. So.
Yeah.
No, but you're right. I noticed that in Europe when I've been there. So it's definitely a very different way of kind of how the training is set up and how, there's more conversation around that. So
Well, maybe our people should have a conversation with their people. And you.
Yeah, exactly. We often talk about how losing sight doesn't mean a lack of vision. Looking back at the entire journey from Porto to Spain, how has this adventure reshaped your personal vision for your next chapter?
Well, I do think that the Camino has expanded my vision. It's helped me feel a little bit more confident about getting out of my comfort zone. It also did very much help me recognize the value of interdependence. And I've talked a lot about that interdependence concept over the past couple years, but I could not have walked that without my husband. And the way we communicated and the support that he provided, absolutely could not have done it without him. So, and recognizing that to me was a big deal. I went like, I'm going to use my cane. It's going to be great. And then 3 days in, I'm like, maybe we should switch to that tether. This cane is not working out. Um, so, recognizing that interdependence is a valid, valuable thing to have in life. I also realized that I really am and continue to be inspired by mentoring people and to helping people really recognize their own potential. I now also have this little travel bug now. Like, I can't wait for the next trip. I just returned from a Daring Sisters retreat. Um, but like, I came home going, okay, what's next? What's next?
Right.
I wish I'm going to tell y'all what's next. I want to create adventure opportunities for people. And I'm starting to talk with people about that. But I'm planning a Camino walk for women next year, women who are blind, women who are sighted, women who, whatever, for women next year. I
That's
want
beautiful.
to encourage people to dream beyond their fears, because I think that's what I want to encourage myself, is to dream beyond my fears.
I love that. Dream
And I'm
beyond your
just gonna
fears.
just put this little
Mm.
in. I'm also starting my next book.
Yay!
Ooh,
Oh my gosh.
yay.
That's so exciting.
It's going to be similar to my last one, but called Walking the Paths of Life.
Love it. I think
Absolutely.
I just want to say one note. You know, Sylvia, you've always been really good at being able to inspire people around you. You know, as long as I've known you, you've always given that very great, like, you know, like, look, we can do it. Like, there's nothing that can stop us. And I stand fully behind that idea that, you know, we can be self advocates. We can inspire each other. We can lift each other up. It doesn't have to be like, yes, we're going through these hard things, but like you said, everybody has some level of baggage that they're carrying through life, but it's just about how we come together. And I think you've always been really, really good at being able to do that. And I say that, I think I said that in a couple of our podcast episodes, but it's true.
Thank you. Well, I'm really about, let's all come together and really, like you said, let's push each other. I'm about, let's push each other, or pull each other, or carry each other, whatever it is at that moment that someone needs. So, yeah. So one final thing I want to say is, vision is not about what our eyes can see. It's a believing that there's another mountain to climb, another person to encourage, and another dream worth pursuing.
Well said.
Wow, what an
Yes.
incredible conversation. And can I just say, Sylvia, when you were talking about the pilgrims carrying their packs and about the ruggedness of the trail, it seemed to me that it's symbolic for life. Everyone
Yes.
is carrying something. And I think for folks that have done this particular pilgrimage, they get that.
Yes.
And that's why they are so open to different people. We talk a lot about differences, but differences are the things that really color our world. Without differences, I think our world would be rather bland.
Yes.
But life is really about the struggles and the things that we're carrying. And I think because we are human and we tend to forget that people are carrying things.
And we're all on that same journey. I think that's what we
Yes.
forget. We
We
all
are,
have
yeah.
the same, we have the same dreams, the same goals. We're all headed the same place. And recognize that. You know, next time I go, you can actually get your pack carried by a service. And that's what I'll be doing.
Hey, I'd be right there with you doing the same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
I suffer.
You poor
I
thing.
think I would like to do it on my own the first time,
Yeah.
just for the experience. And I would intentionally, pack light, because doing the journey is an intentional act by
It is.
itself.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think if I did it a subsequent time, I would hire a service as well,
Yes.
because it sounds hard. It sounds grueling, but
And I want to make sure people understand that, because, you know, while I'm walking, everyone's texting me because they're watching my Instagram and they're like, we want to do it. We want to do it.
Right.
And I need all my friends to know that this is not a walk in the park. Okay. This is hard because, you know, then I'm thinking they're going to go do this and they're going to be like, we hate you. You're not our friend anymore because you died. It's hard, but magical, which is essentially what life is, right?
right. And I think, Sylvia, that your journey reminds us that exploring the world really isn't about how much sight that you have. It's about the vision to step out into the unknown. True inclusion means ensuring the world's most historic pathways are open and welcoming to everyone. I just want to give a huge thank you out to you for sharing your adventure with us, and to Nazreen and Gabby for guiding such an insightful conversation. If you, our listeners, would like to connect with Sylvia, we are going to put her contact information within the show notes. If today's episode inspired you, please take a moment to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. I'll leave you with this. Belongingness entails an unwavering commitment to not simply tolerating and respecting difference, but to ensuring that all people are welcome and feel that they belong. John A. Powell. Thank you so much. And until next time, stay bold, stay beautiful, and keep moving forward.